The Square Ball Podcast.
So the transfer window now closed. Daniel Farke got a little bit catty in the aftermath of the Hull game. We're into the first international break of the season. The 21s and women both drew in games with red cards, and sadly we lost Sol Bamba. And Sol Bamba is the obvious place to start. Terribly sad news over the weekend. I think we all thought that he was all right, and you assumed he was on the mend because that's the last we'd heard about his cancer diagnosis. But sadly not. It appears from the statement that his wife released that unfortunately it had returned.
We are going to get Phil in, aren't we, tomorrow to do a longer show on this, because Phil spoke to him multiple times, didn't he? And I think he'd become something of a friend of Sol's over the years. So, but yeah, for us, it was, I think because he was working again, he was the technical director of Adana Sport, wasn't he? They were the kind of the club that have announced this, because it's where he was employed. And I don't know, you kind of assumed everything was fine with him, didn't you? But yeah, it's no age at all, is it? 39. It's kind of, these things hit when someone around your age as well, isn't it? When you're like, God.
Like shit, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Life is short and life is precious.
It's interesting you say that. It seems like Phil became friends with him, because it feels like everyone that met him became friends with him, really. And I think that's what endeared him to Leeds fans. He just seemed like a good bloke who gave a shit about Leeds at a time when a lot of people at Leeds didn't give a shit about Leeds. So, yeah, he became a fond favourite, whether it was standing up to Cellino or getting drunk at a Player of the Year awards and singing Marching On Together. He just seemed like a really nice bloke.
Yeah, and I know it's very easy to sort of fall into cliches around the time when somebody is lost, like saying, he was such a nice bloke, he had such a radiant smile, but he genuinely did. Like, he had a smile that properly, it lights up anything that you watch him on, doesn't it? Like, he just that broad grin, and when he's singing Marching On Together, I saw that and smiled and just couldn't help but think, it's a really terribly sad loss, but it brought a smile to my face seeing him do that. It just seemed like just a really thoroughly nice bloke.
The clip did the rounds as well of him scoring in the Premier League for Cardiff, and he takes his shirt off and someone's asking him if the ref booked him, and he's like, no, he asked me if I took my shirt off, and I just said I didn't. I think I got away with it. And it's just brilliant, just cheeky. And with all said with a weird French, Ivorian, Scottish hybrid accent, which is just a wonderful thing to hear.
Yeah, I was struck by what you tweeted out about it, Michael, actually, which is... And, we often talk about kind of falling into being kids with football and how basically we just sit on here complaining about how things are not fair. But you tweeted to that effect, like, this just doesn't strike you as very fair. And that's my biggest takeaway from it. It's terribly sad news, obviously, for him and his family, but it feels unfair more than anything. Yeah.
And he was just someone who was, I guess, it's sort of cliches to fall back on, but like was very full of life, wasn't he? Like, you can imagine him being the life and soul of the party and
the dressing room.
The dressing room, I was going to say, I know we don't like to praise Neil Warnock on here too much, but like the stuff Neil Warnock has said, that basically he brought him in to run the dressing room and he used to do a lot of the work for him. And it was the same at Leeds. Like, he was clearly the person who was running things. Well, at a time, I mean, he was with us for, a season and a bit, wasn't he? And had 4 managers during that time. So he was a nice, consistent presence through that, and I think was probably responsible for keeping us on track as much as the club was kind of content to destroy itself.
On that, I didn't realise he was only here for such a short spell of time, but I suppose there was such a lot of churn during that period. But I suppose he falls into a similar sort of bracket as for those who are slightly older, like Vinnie Jones did. Vinnie Jones spent just over a season at Elland Road, but is still fondly remembered to this day for what he brought to the club. And I think with Bamba, there's probably a similar sort of thing. He was a bit of an anchor and a bit of good sense in a time of a lot of chaos.
You've seen it as well with the amount of former teammates that have paid tribute to him. Like, there was a lot of players where I was like, oh, right, you played with him. Mm-hmm. And it ranges from lads who would have been young players at the time, like Calvin Phillips, to more senior players like Liam Cooper and Stuart Dallas. Feels like they all really connected with him.
Yeah, the number of players he crosses over with is so strange. I saw, Tyler Denton was one of the people I saw giving a tribute to him on Twitter, and it's like players you forget even were here, and it feels like a completely different era of Leeds United does the Sol Bamba time. But he was here. He was on the pitch with Calvin and with Cooper and with Dallas and
Lee
with
Peltier.
Was he with Peltz? Okay, probably was.
Yeah, I saw Peltz tweeted out a tribute to him as well. Like, sat next to him in the dressing room. I think that maybe was like, did he go to Rotherham at one point as well?
It was like Cardiff as well, wasn't it?
Yeah. But yeah, and like he was here when like Pontus came in, and he was the Gary Monk season that ultimately was kind of what forced him out of Leeds, because he was down the pecking order. But yeah, he was here for such a strange period of Leeds, and met a wider range of players than probably anyone else.
Yeah, so we'll do it in more depth. I think if you read Phil's article on The Athletic, Just talking about Sol Bamba, I think he really captures like the essence of the man because, as you said, he got to know him and got to know him in a sort of a friendship sense. So we're going to chat to Phil tomorrow. He's coming in. He's coming out of podcast retirement to come and join us to talk about that, which I think possibly is a testament to the man.
Because he hates us.
Yeah. No, doesn't want to have anything to do with us, does he? But to pay tribute to Sol Bamba, Phil's going to be coming in tomorrow, going to be recording something with us, and that'll be out before the weekend. So look out for that. We'll move into the transfer window closing, which also happened over the weekend, heading into the Hull game, actually. How do you feel now it's shut? And I'm talking about being juvenile there. I've realised how much happier I am now it's shut, and that's pathetic.
I'm happy other than for the earworm, which I've come in and thankfully everyone's got it.
Oh, we're all singing in the office.
God, it's hard to get out your head, isn't it, that?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's weird when it's shut. I saw loads of people giving it like marks out of 10 on Twitter. I don't really know who any of the players are, so I was kind of like, I don't know. It could be 10 out of 10. I've no idea. It could be 2 out of 10. It depends if Ramazani is the next Rafinha or the next Weston McKennie.
But I suppose in my mind though, you judge it. Well, you judge everything in football with the benefit of hindsight months down the line.
And the benefit of hindsight is that you've seen 5 minutes of Tanaka and you've been like, this is the guy.
Player of the year.
He's my man.
In fact, we should at some point, maybe next week, because it's the international break, go back and see if we want to add a tweak to our pre-season predictions. Because I'm fairly sure Jorginho featured quite highly in that.
I think I tipped him to be player of the year as well, which feels unlikely.
I don't think any of us had the balls to tip him for top scorer because we've seen him shoot, but I think we all certainly thought he'd be in the mix for player of the year.
I think I said Jadon Bogle was an outside shout as well, which I might want to revise that.
No, he was all right at the weekend.
We'll go back and we'll have a listen to those and see how silly we were already only like a month into the season.
I mean, they looked pretty bad a week in, didn't they? After the Middlesbrough defeat, and everyone was like, "Oh, we're fucked."
But we're not, are we? We just needed it all to settle down again, and for the window to close, know what we've got, know what we're facing, and I think that those 2 wins that we've had, the 2-2-0s, just so steady and almost routine actually in both their characteristics. So I've come out of these last couple of games thinking, we're fine. We're probably going to be fine.
I think on the match ball, we likened it to that period of just winning games last season after Christmas, where we just went on a run and it was like, we just deservedly won every game. Nothing spectacular. Never looked like we were going to blow a team away, but just were the better team for most of it. Scored a couple of goals, limited their chances, and it was all just nice and calm and fine. So it has felt like we've got back to that.
I think also the Sheffield Wednesday game, the first of those, like it was before this little flurry of signings and the players already here showed that, no, we're good players at this level. We know what we're doing. It doesn't always have to be Middlesbrough or West Brom. Like, they can do it. But yeah, it's weird looking back at the transfer window now because it feels like Gray, Kamara, all that lot leaving, that little exodus feels so long ago now. And then obviously it was real transfer window of 2 halves in that we get to the end and we finally sign a few players. And yeah, it was interesting being in Elland Road on Saturday and people being like, what do you reckon? I think they've fallen short or whatever. And I was like, I think it's just about fine. Like I feel like they probably salvaged it at the end. And whether that was always the plan or whether they were caught out with some of the exits, shit happens and they've got there in the end. But I am looking forward to not having to frame everything in reference to the transfer window. Like, just, it's fine, it's done. Nobody can sign anyone. But even you got out of the Hull game and Farke's presser is all about transfers. And it's like, can we just chat about the football now?
Well, did you hear what Graham said when we spoke to him? We spoke to him immediately after the press conference on Saturday. The show came out, on Monday. And he felt that Farke probably had a couple of things he wanted to say. He went into that press conference, as managers sometimes do, with things that he wanted to get off his chest. They've been got off his chest. It's been said now. And you draw a line under it. But what did you make of the comments? Because there's a little bit of sass in that.
A little bit. And I think he's shown that Leeds obviously wanted a number 10, or at least he wanted one. But also, like, reading those comments on Twitter or whatever, you do think, ooh. And then listening back to it, you think, he sounds pretty like calm and not actually that angry or whatever. I think what I took away from it was that he's as tired of all this as we are and as I suspect people at the club are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I wondered if he was just giving himself a bit of an out in terms of if it goes badly, it can go, well, I did want a number 10.
Yeah.
and instead you lumbered me with these wingers.
Well, I wonder if, I'm sort of trying to read into this and read between the lines, I wonder if they've just sort of said to him, you've got enough. You should have enough there to go and do this. So off you go. A little bit of putting him back in his box, and that's where this little bit of friction and butting of heads almost seems to have sprang forth.
He needs to win games now, though, because I feel like if you start speaking out against your bosses and then you lose a few games, it's probably much easier for them to just go, all right, well, we'll try someone else in that case. Whereas at this point last season, even though things weren't going brilliantly, the club kind of knew they had to make it work with Farke. Whereas maybe he's now of a position where he's thinking, well, sack me if you want.
Also, like he's bitten his tongue a lot at Leeds from last summer and the summer just gone. And maybe he does just want to have a little, get things off his chest, like you say. I don't know. And also, I look at it and I think, well, whose opinion at the club do I trust the most? I sort of think, well, judging by what we've seen in the last year, I would back Farke over some of the suits.
Speaking of which, Angus Kinnear is due to come on the show. It looks like he's going to come on and possibly be able to shed a little bit of light on what's happened over the course of the transfer window, the ins and the outs. And I'm interested to hear what his take on the sins of the past that Farke was... But basically, what has Farke said and
the
how...
sins of my past, the past.
But I want to know what Angus Kinnear makes of what Farke said over the course of this window. And it's coming in various chunks, you know, referencing PSR, the sins of the past, wanting a number 10, not getting one. Where does the club sit on it?
I think he'll be very diplomatic. He was not going to come on and say, Daniel can fuck off. He's got a right squad. He should piss the league.
I mean...
He should do this spinning on his cock.
It's no secret, is it? Like, it's there in the accounts. I know we don't necessarily know how much wiggle room they had with PSR, but we could tell that they were in a pretty difficult situation. And you can tell by the outgoings, they were in a pretty difficult situation. Like things like Kamara, who was pretty good for most of last season. And they've gone, nah, we really could do with like doubling our money on you, please. So, you know, the evidence is there, isn't it?
Yeah.
The Tanaka chant would have worked with Kamara as well. Admittedly, not the first name of it, because obviously it's predicated on going, hey, oh.
Yeah,
but Kamara, da-da-da-da-da-da-da.
But you can sing it if you want.
Not anymore.
Sing it to Chris.
Right.
It's still an option. Anyway, that's all I'm saying. Where were we?
We were talking about... Sorry, I was thinking about silly songs that are stuck in my head.
I mean, you can... Any number of names worked, really, I suppose.
Yeah. Poor Dan James hasn't got a song yet, though, has he? Not properly. He's had a little sing-song of his name.
Scum bastard. No?
Said before, the problem with Dan James's name is that it's too short. You need 3 syllables, not 2. So
Can we Daniel James him?
could do
He
potentially.
gets one Dan James, doesn't he?
He does now and then.
That's your fallback default. Though,
I really feel bad for Dan James. He sort of gets forgotten really easily, doesn't he? Like he was really good at Sheffield Wednesday. He misses one game and we've signed 2 players and it's like, fuck that guy. We don't even need him.
shiny new stuff.
Send him back to Fulham.
Yeah, he's played. It's given Tanaka got a chant within 24 hours, and James is waiting 2.5 years on. Is it something like that? I can't remember we actually signed him.
To bring you back to where we were, Rob was just talking about that there were obviously financial, should we say, pressing needs that needed to be addressed.
Well,
we don't know the exact position, but we can guess.
Yeah, and it just happens when you drop out of the Premier League, particularly in the second season where it really starts to bite and you can see the major drop-off of parachute payments around the corner. Unfortunately, getting up is essentially a license to get yourself in more bother. It's like being able to borrow more money means you can just get in more debt, and that is what the Premier League opens the door to, because you go, we're rich, and then you're not all of a sudden because you're back in the Champo.
Yeah, it's a mad old business, isn't it? But we are heading back for the Premier League based on evidence so far. 2 points per game, unbeaten in 4, no goals conceded in 3. That's all right, isn't it, that?
How many goals scored?
Plenty.
Have we got 8?
1, 2, 3,
7,
4, 5, 6, 7.
Oh, nearly a point a game.
But it should have been more, shouldn't it?
Should have been, I suppose, yeah. But I think all the signings we've made, admittedly we haven't seen anything of Schmidt yet, but the little bits we've seen of them all seem fine. Joe Rodon's slightly on the Lubomir Mikalik trajectory of being a good centre-back while he's on loan. And then Andy O'Brien, yeah, he's another one. But, he'll be fine, won't he?
Yeah, it's fine. Like we've kept 3 clean sheets in a row. I know he's not looked perhaps as dominant as he did last season, but Pascal Struijk is back and looking really quietly impressive. There's Chris Mack has written about him on our blog. So yeah, I know people are a bit down on him out of the road on. And I think once you have these little opinions start to form, sort of, you see on Twitter a lot, and you've seen it sort of in our player ratings or some of the feedback. People are like, God, he looks absolutely terrible. It's like, nah, don't.
It's just, been a little bit. It's been a little bit shaky. And let's be fair, that Portsmouth game should have been won in the first 20 minutes. We should have been out of sight, and we shouldn't have conceded any goals in that. So I'm taking that as a clean sheet as well.
And the stuff that he's maybe held against him when you watch it, and you're like, oh, it was a bit all over the place there. Like the one that led to the chance on the weekend. Like he's fouled.
Yeah.
He jumps for the ball. The whole player jumps directly into him rather than for the ball, and then. Well, whilst falling, it bounces off Rodon's leg and goes through. If
you watch it, the ball didn't bounce quite how you would anticipate it. It looked like it was going to bounce further towards our goal. So we had to adjust at the last minute, and in doing so, the guy just ploughed straight into him.
Yeah, it's undoubtedly a foul, is that? So you can't hold it against him, but the feeling when you're watching it in the stadium is like, oh, fuck, just deal with it. But actually, if the ref deals with it, we don't have to.
But also, in that situation, the stakes are so high, because if that happens in midfield to a midfielder or a striker up front, the jeopardy's nowhere near as high. So everything it's like keepers, isn't it? The amount of jeopardy attached to what they do is that much higher, because if he does fuck up, it's probably a goal.
And boy, does Meslier love a bit of jeopardy. Yeah, I saw that back as well. The pass to it was to Ampadu, wasn't it? That led to, well, that was actually their best chance probably, but they made a mess of the cross. But yeah, that was a poor choice of pass.
There was another one where he tried to roll it out to Aronson. It just went straight to them. But then I did notice in the second half actually he rushed out to prevent a Hull one-on-one, which I didn't actually remember from the game. And I was like, oh, that was actually very good.
Yeah, when he cleared it with his feet, just like...
He just likes doing stuff weird, doesn't he? Because he could have used his hands for that one, but he thought, no, I was going to boot it, which, again, it's all right.
Yeah.
When do we start to judge this season? And I'm looking down the fixtures, and we sort of ran through this over the weekend and with Graham as well. Like, there's some biggies coming up. There's some biggies. We've got Burnley at home in the next one, and we're obviously going to be there or thereabouts somewhere if they don't completely collapse. But in among that, you've got Coventry at home, which was a bit problematic last year. Norwich away won't be easy. Sunderland away, they've come out of the blocks, haven't they? And then you've got the next international break there before we face Sheffield United. So maybe it's the November international break, which comes after a series of very winnable fixtures, actually. We're at home to Watford, we're away to Bristol City, home to Plymouth, away to Millwall, and then home to QPR, where you're looking hopefully there for at least 4 wins out of those 5 games, you would hope. So is that the time you start to judge this and see exactly where it's heading, sort of mid-November?
I would say so. I mean, unless things go badly, and then you begin to judge it a lot sooner than that, don't you? Because our aim is to win the league, if we lose our next 3 games, you all of a sudden go, oh, we're not winning the league then. Yeah. So then you start to judge it sooner. As long as things can tick along around the 2 points per game mark. Then in that case, I think November's a decent time to judge it. I was going
to say, I've just got this horrible feeling about that sequence of games around the October international break, which is, so we go to Norwich away and then Sunderland away, and that's that horrible Tuesday, Friday little run that we've got. Both difficult. Would not be surprised with us. That's the Friday game, isn't it? The Sunderland one. Under the lights, Stadium of Light. If we lost that, would not surprise me, given that they've started very well. Equally, we might not, but Leeds have form for this sort of stuff. And then you go into that international break, you've got 2 full weeks to think about, we've got Sheffield United at home in the next game. We need to win that and bounce back from a potential defeat. I'm already starting to play these scenarios out in my mind, but what we don't need to do is lose our shit at that point, because we saw last year that it's probably going to be all right over the course of the season until we collapse at Easter.
Well, I was just about to say, we judge it game by game and we either shit ourselves or we proclaim that we're going to win the league. Because, I mean, you look back at, after the West Brom game, I just kind of hated everything. And actually I look back now and go, that was a decent result. And then you go and win at Sheff Wednesday on a Friday night and the rest of your weekend is just serene. Like, I'm afraid it's going to be awful for the rest of the season in that sense.
Yeah. But I think, do you not think though that there was anxiety attached to the Portsmouth game, because it mirrors last season as well. Like, you've got 1 game to go off with the Portsmouth game. You think, same old. We've done the same again as we did last year. We can't defend anymore. And then it's a draw against West Brom. Well, we've started off with 2 draws and offered very little attacking threat. Where are the goals going to come from?
You don't quite know how season's going to pan out, though, do you, from the early
But you've got a data set of 2 games, and suddenly you go to Sheffield Wednesday, and your third one is, it's a comfortable win. Actually, we can score goals, we might be all right. And then again, you beat Hull, and you go, so it's 4 games I can judge it on now. And we should have won the first one.
Like the Gary Monk season felt disastrous at the start of it, and we were like, it was probably unrealistic given the squad we had looking back at it and how new, challenging for promotion was. But that season started badly, and you had Monk being chippy with Adam Pope because he was asking him about styles of play and stuff. But that actually turned around. And then the reverse of it is the Thomas Christensen season, where it started, we went unbeaten in 7 or something. Everyone was like, bloody hell. There were opinion pieces appearing in papers saying, could this finally be Leeds returning? And then, you fast forward a few months and everyone hates how fat Lasogga is, having caught a glimpse of him on his debut and be like, better than Chris Wood, this guy.
Well, never more so reflected than the scores out of 10 that we got from the TSB Plus members for the game at the weekend. Look at Joel Pirro's mark there, and he's not got man of the match. Your top 3 are Joseph with 8.24, Manor Solomon 8.09, and Junior Firpo 8.04. Your top 3. Joe Rodon again, funnily enough, the lowest scoring of the starters, but all the bench fared pretty well. Pirro did nothing really other than score that goal. 7.43 out of 10.
It's all right, isn't it?
That's all you want from him, though, isn't it?
That is where Joe Pirro is good. Space in the box, slotting it past the keeper nice and calmly. He's really good at that.
Yeah, his best game is when he does nothing other than get a chance. But yeah, I mean, you look at the scores and even players like Joe Rothwell getting 6.41, which I don't really remember him coming on or doing anything, but people were just happy. Like there was someone who gave everyone a 10, I think. There was someone who gave people like a 1, and I was like, come on, mate. Like, we've won a game, it's fine.
Who got a 1?
Oh, he gave a few out, I think. But
that's harsh.
Yeah.
No one was 1 out of 10 in that game. Everyone was absolutely fine.
I think Tanaka scored quite low at 6.89 out of 10. That should have been at least 8 or 9.
Give him the Ballon d'Or, you were suggesting, from that one performance. He did have a lot of passes. I did see some stats out there saying that the number of touches and passes he had for someone who came on at that stage of a game was exceptional. But equally, the game was played at a bit of a snail's pace at that point. Hull had stopped trying to score, hadn't they? So it was just us knocking it about, and that was about it.
Have you seen this, the tactical tweaks? Do you think they've been tactical tweaks? Because Farker scored 7.47 out of 10, and the dickhead ref, Gavin Ward, 2.57, a generous 2.57 out of 10. Did you see the analysis that I think it's LUFC Data have done, showing that we sort of in an attacking sense? It was on Twitter, you can find stuff on Twitter, that when we attack, we sometimes go into like a 3-1-6, which I find interesting. Like, so Ampadu drops back, fullbacks both bomb
That sounds
on.
like a childish formation that someone would do when you're drawing it out. That's Garth Crook's team of the week stuff is 3-1-6.
But how do we get through these low blocks and these deep lying teams that just sit on the edge of the area while you pile loads of men forward and you put fullbacks forward on both sides, whereas previously Farker would attack with a fullback on one side but the other would sit back. Maybe it seems to be a little bit more attacking and a bit zippier this year.
I mean, that could be why Joe Rodon's struggling a bit more as well, because we are leaving fullbacks forward, so he's trying to cover a bit more ground back there.
That's true.
I think some of our movement has been a lot better this season, and whether that's just a start of the season thing and they're a bit fresher. Like, one of the things that frustrated me towards the end of last season was that often we try and be really attacking and throw a load of forwards on, and actually they'd all just stand in a line up against the back 4 or back 5 and none of them would move, and it was a bit like, you're just creating a second wall here that we have to get through.
There's no midfield supplying them, was there?
No, whereas this season there has been a lot of Firpo going wherever he wants to go and Gruev covering him, and Nonto's role has been really interesting, like playing as a second number 10 basically, which we did do a little bit last season, probably before Rutter came and just made that role his own. Like, it was often Somerville and Pirro would kind of play quite centrally. So if we don't have a natural number 10 that Farker is crying out for, you could argue we didn't really have one last season, or certainly at the start of last season. So he's kind of reverted to that a little bit. But I think people use it as a criticism against Farker that his system relies on the attacking players doing something good. And I always think, like, that's how football works.
That's
like
football.
You give the ball to your really good players and they create something. And I think a big thing in the last couple of games is that not just our attacking players, but everyone's looked confident and willing to take a risk at times and quicker. And we look better as a result.
I think some of that criticism is Bielsa legacy stuff as well, in terms of Farker, because as a standard method for winning games, like giving the ball to your good players and getting them to do some stuff, is fine, but I think it's because under Bielsa we saw like Stuart Dallas transformed, and we saw Alioski getting forward and getting goals, and it felt like there was something bigger at play there than just the actual individuals in the team. But the way Farke's doing it is actually pretty standard.
But then with Bielsa, we saw us attack with Pablo Hernandez at number 10, and we were brilliant. We saw us attack with Tyler Roberts at number 10, and we weren't as good. And it was like when we went to West Brom without Somerville and Rutter, having not replaced them, and we didn't look threatening in attack. And it's like,
yeah,
because you've let the good players go.
That will happen.
That's what happens. You get worse.
Northampton's Tyler Roberts.
Yeah, poor guy.
But
poor Northampton. We're just completely writing him off there. It's the move no one wants.
You have seen little bits, little echoes of Bielsa's style of football. Because one of the things that always has annoyed me is the speed at which we pass sometimes, and I feel like there's been a noticeable step up this season. But that goal at Sheffield Wednesday that came down the right. That was a very Bielsa-ish goal, wasn't it? The flick inside, just moving the ball quickly. But we saw it against Hull as well. I thought the second goal in particular was very Bielsa, just moving it quickly, early ball. Yeah,
and Joseph has played his part in that as well. I think at the week it'd be easy for a striker to spend longer on it there and try and hold it up more, but it was played quickly, and it allowed us to the pace of Pirro getting in behind their defence.
It was telling as well with the second goal that when Aronson first got it, he sort of fanning around with it basically, and I think that is sometimes a weakness of his. But the ball came back to him, and he just released it straight away, and we created a chance. And I think Aronson doing probably better than I expected. But sometimes he just needs to be a little bit quicker on the ball himself.
Well, we're heading into the international break then. We've got yet another Welshman in the form of Carl Darlow, which we mentioned, I think, last week. Charlie Cruz being called up to the senior Welsh squad. Is it time to just, never mind that salute badge, the headless salute, are we going to have to put a dragon on the old club crest at this rate?
Half dragon, half bull.
Right.
Might as well go for it. Go for it early yours. The red, that's Welsh too, so it's fine, isn't it? It's not fine. It's not fine, to be clear. I don't want a bull or a dragon on it.
Michael's giving his consent for it now. But it's nice to have so many internationals. It's also a little bit of a thorn in your side, isn't it? Because you want them all to come back and all to be in training. Because we've got all these new guys and a lot of them are going off now.
Well, it's fun until they all get injured, don't we? I think we're all scarred by the last international break, which was what ruined last season. So just wrap them in cotton wool. Maybe something like this is what Joe Rodon needs as well. Go back to your Welsh mates and recover your best form.
Who's playing in this international break? Goes to show the level of mental investment I've got in the internationals. Like you, I just want them all to come back in one piece.
Max Verber's been called up, hasn't he?
Has he? That's nice for him.
It'd be nice for him to get away for a bit. We were discussing actually before recording, weren't we, that some transfer windows are still open, and you wonder if his agent's still on the phone, being like, any chance anyone in Turkey want him? Anyone in Saudi? It'll
be like the Euros. It'll be like, go put yourself in your shop window, mate. And oh no, it's all gone wrong.
England travelling to Dublin as well. Of course, we've never seen any historic problems with that.
Nope, that's sure to go off without a hitch.
Nice for Jack Grealish to go back and see his former teammates as well.
Declan Rice, yeah. Declan Rice as well, yeah. Very popular over there, those guys. I completely forgot England had games. I generally just see this as a break in the Leeds calendar as opposed to...
So can have a couple of days off.
Yeah, as opposed to a thing that is to allow other football to take place. The first I realise of this is I get a notification on my phone that says, like, announcing the lineups of the England game, and I go, oh, England are playing. Bloody hell, right. Who are we playing? Oh, right.
Managed by former Ireland international, Lee Carsley.
Of course, yeah. Oh, he's called up a load of weird players, hasn't he? He's trying to be all trendy.
No, a hipster. Who's he got in there?
Some former scum kid. I don't know.
Oh, fair
don't really care. Like, I won't be watching it. When is it?
It's Saturday.
At some point between now and Leeds playing again.
Saturday the 7th, Tuesday the 10th. So it's Ireland on Saturday at 5:00, and then Finland on Tuesday at 7:45.
Get to see Glenn Kamara again.
Of course, yeah. Is Pookie still in their team?
Let's just say yes.
What about our proud Dragon Welsh boys? Who are we facing?
Best of luck to them against whoever they may be facing.
Yeah.
That's what I say.
That's Turkey on Friday night, and then Montenegro on Monday.
Yeah, of course it is.
Nations League. Are you into the Nations League?
I had forgotten that competition actually existed. Okay, cool. Are we persevering with it?
Yeah, it's a good tournament, whichever group England are in. Did we get relegated in it at some point?
Oh, did we?
Yeah, I think so.
I think we did, yeah. I think
Nice.
we were in some top league, and then we just proper Southgating it in towards the end of the season. Season, I'll say whatever it is. It's not seasons, is it? It just sort of goes on forever, does that thing, and then eventually someone qualifies for the Euros off the back of it. It's nice for that. It allowed some other teams to qualify for the Euros, didn't it?
Did it?
Which was slightly fun, I suppose.
We'll wrap it up in a second. Just to give you a quick call to arms, if you're a TSB Plus member, drop a message to us via one of the many pipes that we have open to you.
Ooh.
What?
Rephrase that. It's horrible.
No. Because Michael Normanton, man with many strings to his bow, what's your latest one?
Sounds. I'm just thinking about your many open pipes and how revolting it is. I'm solving problems, Anna.
Problem Chimp.
Problem Chimp.
Yeah.
Inspired by took Problem Chimp to the Ideal Home Show Half Man Half Biscuit song.
Yeah. Because you like Half Man Half Biscuit, don't you? Yeah.
I do like them very much. So yeah, anything you need solving. Medical, household.
I mean, is there anything it might be easy to list what you can't help with?
I've not yet to discover anything.
Dan's open pipes, is that it?
I mean, I'd just recommend...
pipe works fine.
Is it?
Yeah.
Not gaping at all?
Not that I'm aware of.
Good.
Worth mentioning that Problem Chimp is your Agony Aunt column in the magazine this year. So you can get that online, get it at the ground. But we'll maybe bring it out in audio format as well.
We'll see how many problems we get.
Yeah.
I can deal with all of them. It's not a problem.
What have you dealt with recently?
Do you mean from the column or from in life?
Just generally in life, and how have you managed the situation?
I'm dealing with soil logistics this morning.
That is true. Yeah, I heard the phone call. I can bear witness to that.
You ever heard that? I'm trying to get a large amount of soil delivered to my garden, but it's tricky because it's high. Just trying to find a cowboy delivery company that are willing to recklessly hang some bags of soil over while I slice them open. I think I found one.
Right.
Hopefully it's all sorted. May end up
buried in the soil.
Burying myself alive is the only downside, but we'll see.
So if there's no Problem Chimp column in issue 2, we know what happens.
At least it saves on the funeral, doesn't it? If I've done it for myself, buried in my own garden.
Right, we'll wrap it up there. Thank you, Michael. And we'll look out for Problem Chimp. Yeah, if you're a TSB Plus member, drop us a line and we'll get your problems solved, whether they are football related or even just life related or even indeed soil related or pipe related.
Soil pipes. Deal with all of them.
We'll catch you soon.
The Square Ball Podcast.